We all know how it ends. You're born, you exist for a while, and then you die. That part is simple. It doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, or what you do, it always ends the same way. What isn't simple is everything in between. Because you don't remember where you came from before you were born, and you don't know what happens after you die. And yet somehow, you're completely convinced that this small window in the middle matters, that it has meaning, that it's important. Stop for a second. Think about that. You have no memory of before, no knowledge of after, but you're still sure that right now means something. Why? Not what you've been told, not what sounds good. Why do you actually believe it? Be honest. Most people never really ask that. They hear an answer and they stop. Life has meaning because of love, because of family, because of happiness. That sounds right, it feels complete, but it only feels that way because you didn't ask the next question. Why does love matter? Why does happiness matter? Why should any of it matter at all? Don't answer too quickly. Actually think about it. Because if you keep going, if you don't stop when it gets uncomfortable, something starts to break. The answers don't get stronger, they collapse. At first, people sound confident, then they hesitate, then they repeat things they've heard before, and eventually they run out of answers completely. You reach a point where there is nothing left to say, just silence. And that silence feels wrong. It feels like something is missing. So most people turn back. They go back to whatever they believed before, not because it's true, but because it's easier. Because having any answer feels better than having none. But what if nothing is missing? What if that silence is the answer? What if there is no deeper explanation waiting for you? That's where this starts, not as an idea you learn, but as something you realize, that maybe there is no meaning. Not hidden, not waiting to be discovered, just not there. And if that's true, then everything you think matters is something you decided matters, or something you were taught to believe. You don't believe in meaning, you believe in what you were given. And you defend it, not because it's true, but because losing it would feel like losing the ground beneath you. Think about right and wrong. It feels obvious. Everyone thinks they understand it. But try to explain it without using another belief to support it. Why is something wrong? Most people say because it causes harm. Okay, why is harm bad? Because it hurts people. Why does that matter? Because people shouldn't be hurt. Why not? Keep going. Don't stop. At some point, the answers stop moving forward. You go in circles. You keep using beliefs to explain other beliefs, but none of them have a clear starting point. And that's when you start to notice something. Good and bad aren't built into reality. They don't exist on their own. We created them. We agreed on them, and then we repeated them so many times that they started to feel real. That's the part people don't like, because it means a lot of what you rely on isn't as solid as you thought. People think this way of thinking is negative, that it means everything is bad. But that's not what it is. It's not saying things are bad. It's saying bad doesn't exist. Neither does good. Things just happen, and you react to them. That's it. No deeper rule behind it, no system holding it all together, just patterns you've learned and accepted. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You start noticing it everywhere, all the rules you follow, all the things you say matter. Ask yourself why. Not once, keep asking. You'll notice something. The answers don't get stronger, they get weaker. They turn into guesses, then habits, then nothing. And that's when it starts to feel strange. Not dramatic, not chaotic, just strange. Like everything is built on something invisible, something no one can fully explain. And maybe that's because there's nothing there. Maybe we're all just following patterns we inherited, beliefs passed down without being fully questioned. You didn't choose most of what you believe. It was handed to you before you even knew how to question it. And you kept it because it felt normal. But normal doesn't mean true. It just means familiar. And once you realize that, it becomes hard to take anything at face value. Because now you see how easily your beliefs could have been different. If you were born somewhere else, raised differently, surrounded by different people, you would believe something completely different right now. And it would feel just as real, just as obvious, just as correct. That should bother you, because it means what feels true is often just what you're used to, not something you discovered, something you absorbed. And once you see that, things start to shift. Not dramatically, quietly. The world doesn't change, but your grip on it does. Because now you see how unstable it actually is. Not in a chaotic way, in a subtle way. Like everything is resting on something that isn't really there. And that realization spreads. It doesn't stay limited to ideas like right and wrong. It starts affecting how you see everything. Your goals, your identity, even your sense of self. Think about who you are, the way you describe yourself, your personality, your beliefs, your preferences. It all feels like something stable, something real. But look closer. How much of that did you actually choose, and how much of it just formed over time, based on your environment, your experiences, the people around you, the things you like, the things you dislike, the way you react to situations? All of it has been shaped by things you didn't control, and yet you call it you. You treat it like something fixed, but it isn't. It's changing constantly, slowly, quietly, without you noticing. The person you were a few years ago is not the same person you are now, and the person you are now will not be the same in a few years. And still, you hold on to this idea that there is a stable you underneath it all. But where is it? Try to find it. Not the name you were given, not your memories, not your habits, the actual you, the part that stays the same. Look for it. You won't find it, because it's not there in the way you think it is. It's another construction, another pattern you've learned to believe in. And just like meaning, it feels real because you've never questioned it deeply enough. And once you do, that starts to shift too.
And that's where it becomes heavier. Because now, it's not just the world that feels uncertain, it's you. The thing you relied on as a constant reference point starts to feel unstable. And that creates a different kind of discomfort. Not loud, not overwhelming, but persistent. Because if there is no fixed meaning and no fixed self, then what exactly are you holding on to? What is actually real in the way you thought it was? And the answer is, not much. Not in the way you expected. Things exist, you exist, but not with the structure you assumed was there. Not with the meaning you thought was built into it. Just existence. Just processes unfolding. Just moments appearing and disappearing. And that might sound abstract, but you can see it directly if you pay attention. Look at your thoughts. They appear on their own. You don't decide what your next thought will be before it shows up. It just comes, and then it goes. The same with emotions. They rise, they stay for a while, and then they fade. You experience them, but you don't fully control them. They happen, just like everything else. And once you start noticing that, it becomes harder to believe that there is some stable, controlling center behind it all. It starts to feel more like a process than a thing, something happening rather than something fixed. And that realization connects back to everything else. Because if even your sense of self is not as solid as you thought, then what does it mean for anything else to be? And that's where things start to open up in a different way. Not into clarity, but into something else. Something more honest, less structured, less certain, but closer to what's actually there. And once you start seeing things that way, it doesn't stop. It keeps unfolding. Because now you're not just questioning meaning, you're questioning everything that depends on it. The systems around you, the structure of society, the rules people follow without thinking. Look around. Every system you see, laws, governments, traditions, expectations, only works because people believe in it. Not because it exists in some absolute sense, but because enough people agree that it does. Money only has value because everyone treats it like it does. Laws only have power because people follow them. Social rules only exist because they are enforced through expectation and pressure. None of these things are built into reality. They are maintained constantly. And that should change how you see them, because it means they are not as solid as they appear. They can shift, they can break, they can disappear. And they have before. Entire civilizations have existed, believed in their systems completely, and then collapsed. Everything that once felt permanent became irrelevant, not because reality changed, but because belief changed. And the same thing applies now. What feels stable today is only stable because it is being held in place. But underneath that, there is no guarantee. And once you see that, you start to notice something else: how fragile everything actually is. Not in a dramatic way, not like everything is about to collapse tomorrow, but in a fundamental way. Nothing has to be the way it is. It just happens to be. And that includes the way people think about right and wrong, the way people define what is acceptable and what isn't. These things shift over time. What was once normal becomes unacceptable. What was once rejected becomes accepted, and people adjust without even realizing it. They believe what fits the time they are in, and they defend it like it has always been that way. But it hasn't. And that raises a problem most people don't want to face. If these things can change, then what makes anything truly right or truly wrong? Not what feels right, not what most people agree on, but actually right. And that's where the answer becomes uncomfortable again. Because there is no final standard. There is no objective point you can reach that proves something is absolutely right or absolutely wrong. You can feel it, you can believe it strongly, but you can't ground it in something that exists beyond human agreement. And that's the tension that sits underneath everything. People act like their beliefs are solid, but they're not. They're held together by agreement, by repetition, by familiarity. And once that's gone, the structure disappears. That's what makes this dangerous, not because it's false, but because it removes the illusion of certainty. And people rely on that illusion more than they realize, because without it, things become harder to control, harder to justify, harder to define. And that's something Friedrich Nietzsche understood very clearly. He saw what happens when the foundations people rely on start to disappear, when belief systems lose their power, when meaning starts to fade. He described it simply: God is dead. Not as a literal statement, but as a shift, a loss of structure, a collapse of something people depended on to define right and wrong, purpose and direction. And he didn't celebrate it. He warned about it. Because once that foundation is gone, people don't suddenly become free in a simple way. They become lost. Because now they have to face something they've avoided, that there is no built-in guide, no fixed meaning telling them what to do. And that creates a gap, a space where anything can happen. Because if nothing is objectively wrong, then what stops anything? Think about that carefully, not emotionally, logically. If there is no objective meaning, no absolute right or wrong, then what is actually stopping someone from doing whatever they want? You can say empathy, you can say society, you can say consequences, and those things matter, but they are not absolute. They're still part of the same system. They exist because people maintain them, and if that maintenance breaks, so do they. That's the risk. Not that people will suddenly become evil, but that the structure holding behavior in place is not as stable as it seems. And history shows that clearly. When systems collapse, when meaning breaks down, people don't always become better. Sometimes they become unpredictable, because now there is nothing clearly guiding them. And that's what Nietzsche was pointing to. Not that nihilism is simply an idea, but that it has consequences. That once people fully realize that there is no built-in meaning, they have to decide what to do next. And most people are not prepared for that, because deciding without a foundation is harder than following one. But that's also where something else appears. Not meaning, not truth, but possibility. Because if nothing is fixed, then nothing is forcing you to see things one way. You're not locked into a meaning that was given to you. You're not required to follow a path just because it exists. You have space. Not empty space, but open space. And that space can feel uncomfortable at first, because it doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't guide you, it just exists, and you have to move within it. And that's where things shift again. Because instead of asking what the meaning of life is, you start seeing that there might not be one. And instead of trying to find it, you start noticing that you've always been creating it. Not in a grand way, not as some deep philosophical act, but in small, constant decisions. What you pay attention to, what you care about, what you choose to do with your time. These are all ways you create meaning, even if you don't think about it that way. And the difference now is that you're aware of it. You're not following something blindly, you're choosing it. And that doesn't make it objectively true. It doesn't suddenly give it a universal purpose, but it makes it real in a different way. Real because you decided it was enough. And that might not feel satisfying at first, because it's not a perfect answer. It doesn't resolve everything. It doesn't give you certainty. But it might be the only honest position available, because anything else would be pretending that there was something more when there isn't. And that brings you back to where you started. You're here. You're alive. You're aware of it. Not for a reason you can explain, not for a purpose you can prove, but it's happening anyway. And that's the part that stays. Not meaning, not truth, just experience. Just being here for a limited amount of time without knowing why. And maybe that's enough. Not in a comforting way, not in a complete way, but in a real way. Because it doesn't rely on something that isn't there. It doesn't pretend there is an answer waiting for you. It accepts that there might not be one. And that acceptance changes something. Not the world, not reality, but how you relate to it. You stop looking for meaning in places where it was never going to be found. You stop expecting life to justify itself. And instead you start seeing it as it is. Temporary, uncertain, without a final explanation. And you're still in it, still moving through it, still experiencing it. And that's the part that doesn't need to be explained. It's already happening. And one day it won't be. Not because it leads somewhere else, not because it completes a story, but because it ends, just like it began, without explanation. And whatever you thought mattered won't matter anymore. Not because it was wrong, but because it was never permanent. And neither are you. And maybe that's the last thing to understand. Not as an answer, but as a limit. That whatever this is, it doesn't stay. And whatever you do within it doesn't stay either. It appears, it exists for a while, and then it's gone. And that's not something you fix. It's something you see.